Captain Vera stood on the bridge of Andromeda-7. Her hands trembled slightly as they hovered over the console. Outside the main viewport, a tragedy of cosmic scale unfolded. Her home galaxy, a place of 1,000,000,000,000 suns and countless memories, was tearing itself apart. Stars imploded like forgotten fireworks, their lights snuffed out forever. Nebulae, once vibrant with the promise of new life, now bled into the cold, unforgiving vacuum. Vera watched as entire constellations vanished, their ancient patterns erased from the celestial map. She was the last witness to the death of everything she had ever known, a lonely sentinel at the end of time. With a deep breath that tasted of recycled air and sorrow, she pressed the activation sequence. The ship's quantum drive hummed to life, a low thrum that vibrated through the metal deck plates beneath her feet. It was a sound of departure, a final goodbye. The engines whined, building power for a leap into the unknown, a jump that would carry her away from the galactic wreckage. There was no turning back. The past was a ghost, a dying fire in her rearview scope. Her gaze was fixed forward, on the endless black that promised either salvation or oblivion. She was leaving home not by choice, but by necessity. The Andromeda-7 shuddered, a great beast stirring from a long slumber. On the screen, the dying galaxy swirled into a vortex of light and shadow, a final, beautiful, and terrible spectacle. It was like watching a magnificent painting being set ablaze, the colors running and melting into nothingness. She remembered the faces of her crew, their laughter echoing in the now silent corridors. They were gone, consumed by the same cataclysm she was now fleeing. Their memory was a weight in her heart, a silent promise she had made to keep going, to find a new beginning for them all. The ship was ready. She was ready. A single tear traced a path down her cheek as she gave the final command, engage. The universe outside the viewport warped and stretched. The dying light of her home twisted into long, thin ribbons of color. Then, with a silent, instantaneous flash, it was gone. The Andromeda-7 plunged into the deep, starless chasm between galaxies. Vera was utterly alone, a solitary mariner on an ocean of infinite night. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the steady rhythmic pulse of the ship's life support systems, a mechanical heartbeat in the vast emptiness of space. Days bled into weeks, and weeks stretched into months. Time lost its meaning in the featureless void. Vera's journey was a lonely pilgrimage through a cosmic graveyard. She navigated the Andromeda-7 past the husks of dying stars, their final furious flares painting the darkness with strokes of angry red and orange. These celestial beacons were not signs of life, but cosmic tombstones, marking the places where worlds had once thrived. She carefully plotted courses around the gravitational wells of rogue black holes, invisible monsters that lurked in the dark, hungry to devour any light or matter that strayed too close. Each one was a silent, deadly trap. Her destination was a myth, a whisper passed down through generations of starfarers' Elysium. It was a world said to exist at the very edge of the known universe, a paradise untouched by the decay that had claimed her home. The coordinates were ancient, almost legendary, and many believed it was just a fairy tale to soothe the fears of those who stared too long into the dark. But for Vera, it was the only hope she had left. It was the name she whispered to herself in the quiet moments, a prayer for a safe harbor at the end of her long, desperate voyage across the empty sea. The ship became a mausoleum of memories. Every empty chair on the bridge, every silent bunk in the crew quarters was a reminder of what she had lost. She would sometimes walk the cold, metallic hallways, her footsteps the only sound, and imagine she could hear the faint echoes of her crew's voices. She remembered Engineer Jax, always covered in grease but smiling. She remembered Navigator Lynn, whose laughter could fill the entire mess hall. Their absence was a physical presence, a cold spot in every room. They were ghosts haunting her solitary journey, their faces appearing in the reflections of the dark screens. Her search was relentless. She scanned every star system, every rogue planet, every faint flicker of energy. The ship's sensors swept the darkness day and night, sifting through cosmic radiation for any sign, any clue that Elysium was real. But the universe remained stubbornly silent and empty. The star charts she consulted were old and unreliable in this uncharted territory. For every star she passed, 1,000 more lay ahead, each one a potential dead end. The loneliness was an immense pressure, threatening to crush her spirit, but the thought of Elysium, a seed of hope, kept her moving forward. The red warning light on the environmental control panel began to blink. It was a quiet, insidious pulse that Vera had been dreading for weeks. Oxygen levels were critical. The ship's recyclers were failing, working harder and harder to scrub the carbon dioxide from the thin air. Each breath she took was a calculated expense, a countdown timer marking the final act of her journey. The air grew stale, tasting of metal and desperation. She reduced her movements, spending most of her time strapped into the command chair, conserving every precious molecule of oxygen that remained. Her world had shrunk to the bridge of her ship. She stared at the star maps, her vision blurred with fatigue. The coordinates for Elysium led her here, to this barren sector of space, but there was nothing, only cold, distant stars and the suffocating emptiness. Had it all been a lie? A cruel joke played by a dying civilization? The hope that had fueled her for so long began to flicker and fade like a candle in a strong wind. Panic, cold and sharp, tried to claw its way up her throat. She fought it down, her training kicking in. A captain does not despair. A captain finds a way. But the universe offered no answers. Just as the last vestiges of her resolve began to crumble, a new sound broke the silence. It was not the dreaded alarm of system failure, but a soft, melodic chime from the navigation computer. A single, unexpected note of hope in the symphony of her despair. Vera's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. On the main screen, a new set of coordinates glowed with a soft blue light. They had not been there a moment ago. The ship's computer had not detected them. They had simply appeared as if whispered into the system from an unknown source. The coordinates were not on any known star chart. They pointed to a location deep within a swirling, uncharted nebula. A place no ship had ever dared to enter. It was not Elysium, it was somewhere else entirely. A choice lay before her, to drift here and let her oxygen run out, clinging to a faded myth, or to trust this impossible, mysterious signal. With her remaining strength, she steadied her hand and plotted the new course. It was a blind leap of faith, a final gamble with the last of her fuel and air. She had nothing left to lose and an entire universe to potentially gain. The Andromeda-7 plunged into the vibrant, colourful clouds of the nebula. Hues of purple, green and gold washed over the viewport, a silent, breathtaking storm of cosmic dust and gas. The ship's sensors went haywire, overwhelmed by the strange energy readings. Vera flew on manual, her instincts her only guide through the beautiful, chaotic maze. Deeper and deeper she flew until the ship emerged from the thick clouds into a clearing. Before her was something that defied all known physics and astronomy. It was a structure, vast and ancient, a gate woven from solidified light and shimmering energy. It hummed with a power that made the very atoms of her ship vibrate. With the last of her fuel, she guided the Andromeda-7 through the celestial archway. There was no violent jolt, no disorienting flash of light. Instead, it was like passing through a cool curtain of water. One moment she was in the nebula, and the next she was somewhere else. The stars here were different, arranged in patterns she had never seen. They shone with a pure white light, like scattered diamonds on black velvet. There was no sign of death or decay here, but there was no sign of life either. No planets, no suns, only the silent, watchful stars and an overwhelming sense of stillness. This place was not an end, but it was not a beginning either. It felt older than both. It was a space outside of time, a nexus where the universe itself seemed to pause and take a breath. The low oxygen alarm on her console fell silent. Vera took a breath and found the air was sweet and clean, impossibly fresh. The ship's systems, once failing, now glowed with a steady, healthy light, powered by an unseen source. She was not dying, but she did not feel alive in the way she understood it. She felt observed, watched over by something immense and ancient. She stood up and walked to the viewport, her heart no longer pounding with fear, but with a profound and quiet wonder. The feeling of loneliness was gone, replaced by a sense of presence. She was not the last of her kind, a final flickering ember. She was a guest. Something was here, in the stillness and the starlight. Something that had waited for eons, something that had summoned her across the void. The journey of Andromeda-7 was over, but her own odyssey was just beginning. The universe was not empty after all, it was waiting for her.